Okay, so what I want to do is kind of cover how to install VirtualBox. So if you go to virtualbox.org, right, this is an Oracle product. So it's made by Oracle, so we kind of got to take it with a grain of salt, right? So what you can do is just, if you go to downloads, right, and depending on what you've got, right, we're just going to do Windows. This is going to make an assumption that you are on a Windows 7 box, okay? And then you just want to go ahead and you want to save the file, and it takes about a minute for it to download. So while we're kind of waiting for this to go, and you can kind of see how I've been recording videos all day, so we kind of just wait for this thing to download. But you just really want the version current for Windows host. That's really all you want from this, right? And then once it's all done being downloaded and everything else, you're basically going to want to install it like you would any other software on the face of the planet. It's not a huge issue to install it. So we kind of just got to wait for it here for a minute. Wait for it. Everybody want to do a countdown? No network's ever fast enough when you're doing a video. So basically, again, it's virtualbox.org. Go to the downloads, do your thing, right? And then it's all done. So you just go ahead and you click on it, and depending on what your computer does, we want to make sure that we get it to open. And continuing folder. There we go. There's our run. So we want to run it, and then we just want to, since I opened it a couple of times, Oracle box. So this is the standard setup. You just click on next. What you basically want is you do want USB. You want it to be installed on the hard drive. So everything that comes with you definitely want installed. You may not need Python, but just go ahead and leave it in there anyways. Create a shortcut. Create shortcuts. Click next. The warning network interfaces may go down, may go up. And then it just go through, again, you're just accepting all the defaults here and then going through and doing your install. It's going to take a couple of minutes for it to do it. So I'm going to kind of wait. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video while we're waiting for this thing to install. So what may end up happening is while we're waiting for this thing to install, one of the things it's going to do is it's going to pop up with a standard Windows security thingy asking if you want to install. Are you sure you want to do that? So what's going to end up happening is while we're waiting for the setup wizard, what it's doing is it's hand checking between the Windows 7 system and VirtualBox to see if it actually wants to install. So that's why this thing takes several minutes. The handoff between I want to install, I don't want to install can sometimes take a couple of minutes for it to kind of sort out on whether we really want to do this or not. So if you see this, yes, I do want to install this on my computer, and then the setup kind of goes through, kind of does its thing. Again, it's going to take a couple minutes, so we'll just sit here and we'll watch it do its thing, copy new files, whatever else it decides it wants to do. Okay, do we want to install the serial bus controller? Yes, we do want to install that. So we do want to make sure that we install all the odds and sods, everything that it wants. Yes, you just install it. And yes, we do. We want to have it do its own bridge. When you install the network configuration, basically what you're doing is you're saying, yes, I want to install the adapters for this so it can actually work on the internet. If you don't install the adapters, it's not going to work on the internet. It won't be able to connect. Basically, when you're going through and you're doing this, if you take a look and see what's going on with your network, you're going to install more stuff. What you'll end up seeing here is, as we kind of go through, right, and seeing what's on the network, what we want to do is we want to go to the Network and Sharing Center. And then what we can do is we're going to actually see that it's entering a whole bunch of the new stuff. So you're going to see your new VMware adapters here, right? And those are really kind of important because they kind of allow your virtual machine to talk on the internet. So once it's done, click Finish. It will go ahead and start VM. So you do have all of your connectors and everything else that you're going to need, including local access internet. And you're in pretty good shape once you've got all that set up and good to go. Now, you've got your first VirtualBox. It's all installed. It's all ready to go. Now, it's useless without an operating system. So if you go new, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to poke in. I've got a Ubuntu desktop, right? And the desktop's good enough for what I plan on doing here, which is doing a little bit of stuff. So I'm just going to call it Ubuntu. And it's going to go Linux, and it's going to go Ubuntu. So we go next, right? Recommended, I'm going to go ahead. I've got a little bit of memory here, so I'm just going to give it 1 gig 1024, right, of memory to run in. I want to create a new virtual hard drive because we don't have any created, right? And we'll just do a VirtualBox disk image, right? We can do a VMDK, which is good for if you're using something like VMware or anything else. If you have an Apple, then you can make it compatible with Parallels. So, and that's the Apple virtualization, and then the rest of these are all other stuff that you can use. But we'll just keep it as a VirtualBox disk image. We'll just do it dynamically allocated. It will start off with 8 gigs, and then we're pretty much so good to go. That's the space we've got. And what it does, it goes off and does its thing. Now, if you go into settings on this, right, general, it's Ubuntu, it's advanced, we can do a shared clipboard. We can do it bidirectional, so that way if I'm doing something in Windows, I can copy it over to my Windows box. I can also do drag and drop, so I can move files back and forth if I feel like it, and these are really kind of handy to do. This is where it's going to put its snapshots, because it will make snapshots every time you change something. You can put a description in here. System, this is where if you don't have enough power, you can change things around. Boot order, floppy, CD, hard disk, pretty standard with a computer. If you just wanted to boot off the hard disk, then there you go. Tells you the chipset that you're using inside your computer, hardware clock, absolute pointing device for your mouse, the display, how much video memory you want to use, how many monitors you've got if you want to enable acceleration for this, how much storage you want to give it on the controllers, the name of the controller, the type that you've got, any audio that you want to use, your network, enable network adapter. If you do NAT, which is network address translation, whatever, it basically will take all of its data from the computer that you've got cooking. If you choose to do bridged, you have to give it an IP address on your network. So 9 times out of 10, we just want to leave this as NAT. Any kind of serial ports, if you want to have those, so if you want to have COM1, you can do that. If you're like going to telnet in or something else. USB, we want to enable USB so that we can actually use USB. And if we want to have a shared folder, we can actually do folder path, and it will take you to here, and then you can just choose, wherever you want it to be in terms of your system. So we do My Documents, and then we can make it auto mount. If we want it to only read only, then we can do that, but I want to be able to share data back and forth between the two computers. So we'll go OK, and then we'll go OK, and then we can click on Start, and what will end up happening, it'll give you this. So host key, the right control will actually bust you out of this, right? Auto keyboard capture, which is really kind of cool. Because I have my Ubuntu disk in here, it's going to go to the host drive D, so it can start up, and you can see all of its little status: hard drive, disk, USB, network, shared folders, virtualized system, and all the rest of it. 32-bit color, currently set to 16. I'm okay with that. Control right, just so you can remember that it's hitting the control right button, so you can actually tear things apart and go through it. And then it kind of just boots off the disk, keeps the thing, mouse pointer integration, yeah, we want that. And then you see our little Ubuntu disk thingy going off, so we can actually kind of go through then and watch this thing go up and do its install. It's going to be kind of slow at first as you kind of get going, but once you actually get going, you're in pretty good shape. Again, this is just a tad bit older than the current 12.10 as of today, but operating systems kind of tend to morph over time. It doesn't really matter what operating system you use, because Windows is going to work the same way. I'm just using Ubuntu disk because that was what I had handy on my desktop. So let's go ahead and let this thing do its boot cycle. As it waits for a while, unpacks all the goodness on the hard drive. And you can kind of see it on the indicator down here, the little disk with the little green light. You can kind of see it flicker on and off as it's reading the CD-ROM drive. Alright, guess mouse pointer integration, we're good. Upgrade BIOS. Now, if you see this may be a problem, right? This may tell you that there's all sorts of things going on, but you may not have to do this. You kind of want to see if it will continue to go. If it's still running, the little colors will change. Right? To go and upgrade the BIOS, you want to make sure that you turn on virtualization. So whatever F key that your system uses for that, you want to make sure that you've turned on virtualization on your PC when you're doing this. Otherwise, you'll never get a virtual machine to run on your computer. And that's kind of interesting. And then, boom, we're up, we're running, we're good to go. I have my little disk thingy doing its own thing and getting ready to install. So it gives you that nice Ubuntu orangey, purpley, whitish, grayish, blackish kind of splash screen. This is really ugly if you're like colorblind in the orange purple range. You kind of want to see what it's doing. And you see the little keyboard indicator here and all the rest of it. So you, again, a new operating system, if you've never used Ubuntu before, you might want to run through a couple of quick tutorials on how to use Ubuntu. But as it sits here and it boots, it definitely takes its sweet time doing it, especially if you're on a slow, older computer. Alright, so we want to install Ubuntu. We want to make sure that we're doing it in English. Right? So we have all of our hard drive space. We have 8 gigs. It's connected. Do we want to download the updates? Yeah, we do. Do we want to install all the other stuff? Not right now. So, but we always want to download the updates just in case there's something doing that we want to do. We're going to go ahead and, because it's a fresh partition, a fresh chunk, we'll just go ahead and erase the disk and install Ubuntu. It shows us our virtual disk hard drive, and then we're good to go. And we do our install now. And it says the entire disk will be used, all 8.6 gigs. And we're in pretty good shape. And it does this thing. So where are you at? If you want to say where you're at, you can lie and say you're in Los Angeles. I happen to be in Seattle at this point. So Seattle, Washington. Well, we'll lie. We'll say East Seattle because I have no idea where East Seattle is. And click on continue. Now, one of the other things too is if your screen sizing wrong, you can move it around, but that doesn't change the screen sizing of the actual Ubuntu install that you're doing. So if you need to drag things around to kind of see where things are. Regular standard US keyboard, nothing special here. Your name. Student VirtualBox. Pick a username, student. Pick a password that will work. I'm picking an intentionally weak password. Require my password to log in. Only if you lose the encryption keys to your home folder, you're kind of hosed. It will never work. So usually I just keep the encrypt my home folder off. What I'll do is I'll run a script on logout that will just go ahead and copy everything and do what I want to do. But we just set it up for student. We set it up for student password. So not a big password. It's weak. Everybody knows it. It's not that big a deal. Again, the install is pretty much so self-explanatory and self-set, so you don't really need to sweat it. And as long as you've got your VirtualBox in the network set to NAT, because again, this whole thing will manage the whole process for you. If you need to take a snapshot of your system as you kind of go through, you can take an automated snapshot. Take a snapshot of its current state. So if you make massive changes, you can roll back, you can remove stuff, you can clone your snapshot, show details. It's usually a really good idea that once you're done with the install to go ahead and take a snapshot so you've got something that you know is straightforward. What you can also do, get to settings, show, pause, reset, close. You can also show the log on this thing, and the logs are kind of interesting so you can kind of see how it booted, how it's working, if there's a technical issue. So if someone asks you where the log is, if your instructor or whoever is building it asks you for the log, then you know you can get it. So when we did NAT, we told it IPv6, it went ahead and gave itself its own internal DNS and offered IP address via VMware. This isn't coming from your computer, this is actually coming from within VMware, the VirtualBox itself. So that's why when you take a look at your network, you see these host adapters for VMware. All right. That's where this stuff is coming from. So you want to make sure that it's got at least a good address internal, so you don't need to worry about it. Right? And then if you want to refresh it, you just refresh it. It goes from top to bottom, so it kind of tells you where things are in terms of how things are installing and all the rest of it. So you can see some really cool things in your logs. You can show and explore, and that should take you straight to the rest of it. It would take you right to the directory with your log that you just opened up. But so if I need your logs, go ahead and send me your logs there. And then these are all the disk images and machine and preview files and other stuff that it needs to have to run. right? And then you can create a shortcut for this specific one on your box. If you have a lot of them, you can just kind of sort them out and not sweat it. But you can go right into the details, and it will tell you everything that's going on with your box, including the network, right? Adapter 1. Depending on which adapter you're using, this is the one that you want to kind of see. And then as this thing kind of goes through, it's still going to copy all of its files, telling you how amazingly cool Ubuntu is and all the fun things that you can do with it along the way. Ubuntu is just a generic operating system. You can do the same thing with Windows. You can do the same thing with anything else that you want to do with. As long as it's a recognized operating system, you're in good shape. And again, I really recommend that you do this from a disk that you burned, or a disk that you downloaded a bootable image off your CD-ROM, because that will just make your life tons easier. Although there are ways of doing this straight from an ISO image to your desktop, and we'll maybe cover that later on. But in the meantime, we just basically hang out and let this thing install. Machine, same thing, right? You can take snapshot session information, so if you want to see, because it has to pull all the data that it's doing and everything else in terms of how many transfers, how much it's writing,
network statistics, data received and transmitted, and bytes, all the other things you may want to know about this session that you're doing. Insert Control Alt Delete, sometimes you need that, especially with Windows. If you need to boot, you can pause, reshut, shut the thing down. You can switch to full screen, switch to scale mode, see to how this thing's going. So if we scale it, right, there's my scale, and then I can drag it and make it to the right size. Now the thing that disappeared too was the running bar on the top, right? So if I want to see that, that's kind of where we're at in terms of how that scalability works. I may actually have to go back to here and go into settings, and then go into display and back to where I was again in terms of all this, and also enable remote displays. I mean, there's just a ton of cool stuff in here. It's worth going out and exploring as you kind of go through it. Figure it should take you about maybe 20 minutes to do this if you have the time or the energy to do it. But that's basically all there is to setting up and running VirtualBox on a Windows with a Ubuntu VM on top of it. Then after that, you should be up and running and good to go with no major issues. So what we'll do is we'll wait and we'll kind of go through some of the configuration things with Ubuntu that you may check out. So we're going to pause the video and let you kind of go from there. Okay, so we're back to this. So once the installation is complete, you just kind of go ahead and restart it and let it kind of do its own thing. It's going to go ahead and shut down and get everything all ready to go. So again, it's restart your VirtualBox. When it says restart the computer, you don't really restart your whole PC. You don't have to. It's just restart the VirtualBox as you're kind of gone through it. And that kind of goes through its process. And this is going to take another couple of minutes. Okay, once it's done writing all of its stuff, you'll see this screen pop up. It's basically remove installation, close the tray. So remove our disk. And then we go ahead and we hit the enter key. And we have our screen pop up. And then we should just go ahead and see what we've got cooking here as our Ubuntu goes ahead and starts up. Again, mouse support. It kind of goes through its process and takes a look at everything that it's got cooking as we kind of go through this. So now you basically have a really good virtual machine. Right, so if you're going to go ahead and then do something with it, you can also go back here, right? And remember we were talking about snapshots earlier? So we make sure it's up and running and we got it good to go, right? What we can do is we can take a snapshot, and then we can go snapshot, and we go snapshot 1, Ubuntu fresh install, DHCP, boot, VM, image for VirtualBox. Alright, so there's my snapshot, right? And that means that I can actually come up and it should be good to go, right? If I never need to come back to this, I can do this.
So we type in our password that we gave it early on when we set up our image, and it should take us right to our very slow and cookie, because again I didn't give it a whole lot of time, and this is my Ubuntu. It brings up the Ubuntu screen, and we should be pretty well good to go. If we want to check out and see kind of what we've got cooking, we can see we've got network. So what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and click on the home, right, and then type in terminal, and you should see terminal. And one of the first things you can do is, if you want to see if your network is working, is if config, right? And that should tell you what you got. If you want to make sure you've got DNS, nslookup google.com, and it should give you a whole bunch of stuff about what's going on with that you've got it. So you know you've got network, you know you can get to Google. Life's pretty good. This is going to be your Firefox, this is your writer, calculator, all the other things you can do with it. And then from here we go, and it's a Ubuntu lesson. But nslookup, look up any website you want. You can choose bing.com, all right, to make sure you've got good DNS, and then if config to make sure that you actually have a network and you're good to go. And that's it. That's all you got to do. And when you're done with it and you're finished, all you got to do is click on that, go back up to the details, and you can go pause, close, save state, power off. So we're just going to go ahead and power that off, and that's fine. We're done. That's it. That's all there is to installing VMware, and you got it good to go. If you want to restart it again, you just click on start and switch to scale mode, and there you go, and it will bring you right back up to however you left it off last time if you saved state. If not, it should just bring it right back up to your system. And that's all there is to installing and configuring VirtualBox.